Jim there, sticking with what he knows best. Now, Laptop magazine tracks the latest developments in the electronic and digital world. It's taken a very close look at the iPhone 5. Mark Spoonauer is editor-in-chief at Laptop, and he joins us now from our New York bureau. First question is, presumably the iPhone 5 goes through stringent tests before it's released to the market. So the question is, why would a dodgy app like Map App be released in the first place?
Well, I do think that it was rushed to market, and we were a little bit surprised ourselves based on some of the early testing that we're doing. I saw your report, and it's actually humorous in a bad way in a lot of cases. And I think people are going to be inconvenienced by this new app. So it is a little surprising for a company that really prides itself on high quality that they would let this slip through. But I think a lot of it had to do with business decisions and the fact that they just didn't want to work with Google.
And so how much is there the demand to get an iPhone 5 out once the date has been committed to?
In terms of the testing process?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would say, well, when you back out all the carrier testing and all the testing that Apple does internally, I'm sure that they were aware that this was a first version and that they would have to make enhancements and make them quickly. I'm sure there's a lot of people in Apple's headquarters right now that are working on this problem, and TomTom, it's been reported that they're going to be working with Apple too to update this. Apple issued a statement to us also saying that because the Maps app is cloud-based, that it's going to get better over time just as people use it. But there's no question that in the short term, people should be looking towards alternatives, and we've recommended some.
And yet, of course, the iPhone 5 is launched with a lot of fanfare, and really it has, it would seem by all accounts, to have the wow factor when the iPhone 4, its predecessor, didn't. How do you explain that?
So the wow factor from the iPhone 4S actually came from Siri. So for the first time, you had a voice-controlled assistant. With the iPhone 5, it's really not in terms of the software that people are excited. It's about the hardware. I have one right here in my hands. And what really makes it different is just how thin and light this device is. It actually makes the iPhone 4S look bulky by comparison. And they did that with even a larger screen. So you're looking at a 4-inch device here with a lot more pixel density here.
28 megapixels, right?
Yeah. So it's taller than it was. So you're fitting in more information. So if you're on a web page, for example, you'll be able to see more detail. And if you zoom in close, you can see that what we have here is a map that you can see a live overview in 3D. So they've done a lot of nice work in the industrial design, especially at a time that people like Samsung and others are really building bigger screens without really worrying about the one-handed friendliness of the device.
This brings me to another point, because the design was one of the hallmarks of Steve Jobs' legacy, was how he designed his products, and he placed a huge emphasis on that. But when it comes to the software, I mean, Samsung would say, for example, that they have a lot of that software already on the market. They're running ads already in the United States, making the Apple 5 look almost redundant.
Well, it's true that this time around, I think that I give the edge to Samsung in terms of software innovation. If you look at some of the features that are inside their phones, like the ability to share files between two phones with a tap, and the ability to just keep the screen on with your eyes just by looking at the screen. So I really do think that Samsung is pushing the envelope there, but Apple has done some really important work with iOS 6, like Facebook integration, things that people have been really asking for.
Right. Now, if you had an iPhone 4, what would be the reason to upgrade to the iPhone 5?
I think actually three main reasons. The addition of 4G LTE speeds is really important, not only for web browsing, but for downloading apps, and also when it works well, maps, so you can get where you're going. And also, despite the fact that you have a larger screen and faster speeds, Apple is promising 8 hours of battery life when you're surfing the web, which is up from 2 hours from the previous version. There's a lot of complaints about the short battery life from the iPhone 4.
And just a final question. You know, when the first iPhone came out, it revolutionized the market because it partly gave people what they didn't think they needed. So how can Apple top the iPhone 5? Do you see new technology, faster speeds coming on stream?
Well, there are some technologies on the horizon. I think a lot of people like the fact that Samsung's phones, for example, have near-field communications, which allow you to use the phone as a wallet. Apple has a similar feature in their phone called Passbook, but it's really more for storing things like coupons and that sort of thing. I really think the next generation is not necessarily going to be handheld devices. It's going to be about stuff that you actually wear, like Google Glasses, where you have a smartphone right in your face.
What a way to end an interview with what words. Thanks very much indeed. Mark Spoonauer there. Thank you for joining us there, editor-in-chief of Laptop magazine.